today's episode, a professional lion tour guide is brutally mauled by lions as he tries to defend his guests from being attacked. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. This is the terrifying lion attack on tour guide Quinn Swales. Welcome to Final Affliction. For visitors to Hwange Park in northwestern Zimbabwe, a walking safari is often considered an experience of a lifetime. But for professional Zimbabwean guide 40-year-old Quinn Swales, it was his job, and he loved every second of it. He was originally from Trelawney in northern Zimbabwe and had worked as a pilot before turning his hand to wildlife guiding. All guides in Zimbabwean parks are trained to a very high standard, and Quinn was no exception. He knew Hwange Park like the back of his hand. It was his office, and what an office it was. Hwange Park is Zimbabwe's largest park, spanning 14,650 square kilometers. It is home to 4 of the Big Five: elephant, lion, leopard, and buffalo, and is home to Africa's largest population of wild dogs. It offers exceptional game viewing and photograph opportunities for paying guests. It is one of the best places to experience the wilds of Africa in all its glory. But the park had become famous for all the wrong reasons only the month before. Cecil the lion made headlines when he was illegally hunted by American dentist Walter Palmer. Cecil was a magnificent 13-year-old male who was considered the top attraction at Hwange. The incident sparked outrage across the globe as details emerged of the hunt in which Walter shot and injured Cecil with a bow and arrow, and then tracked the maimed lion for more than 40 hours before shooting him with his rifle. This act of cruelty was not unfelt by the rangers and guides who worked tirelessly to protect the animals in their park, whilst also providing paying guests with the best experiences to observe the wildlife safely. Quinn was in his job to enjoy the wildlife and allow his guests the same experience, not to kill it. At dawn, on Monday the 24th of August, 2014, Quinn took a group of guests staying at Camp Hwange out for a photographic walking safari. As the milky haze of the dawn light was just appearing on the horizon, the group eagerly walked through the bush. There was a chill in the air as night gave way to day, but it wasn't long before Quinn spotted some tracks in the soft, sandy soil. Along the edge of the open savanna were some telltale signs that Quinn's guests were in for a treat and likely an exceptional photographic opportunity. There were large paw prints, and Quinn identified them as lion footprints. He knew exactly which pride they belonged to as well. He had grown to know the lions over the years and knew them all individually, something the guests were always impressed with. Slowly, the group made their way along the edge of the brown grass, following the footprints until Quinn stopped. The guests all stood still in a line behind the guide. Pressing his forefinger to his lips, Quinn turned to the group and then pointed out the pride of lions. They were lying in the open at some distance away. The 6 clients Quinn was guiding marveled at the spectacle. They looked so peaceful and calm as they lay there, seemingly without a care in the world. They were perfectly illuminated by the early morning light, but something was about to change. The lions had spotted Quinn and his group, but they didn't seem to be too bothered by their presence. They were no threat to them at that distance. The group stood completely still in silence, some of them snapping away with their cameras. Then the male lion called Naksaha stood up. Clearly, he wasn't happy about them being there. He began to walk purposefully towards the group, and the guests began to feel their adrenaline pumping. They could see the male lion's huge, shaggy mane and the intent in his shiny bronze eyes. He wasn't running towards them, but his strides were confident and decisive. There was nowhere for the group to go. They were totally exposed on the African savanna, with no vehicle or camp to retreat to. And still, the lion kept coming. Although the clients' hearts thundered in their chests and they felt the urge to run away, Quinn had experienced this situation many times before. He didn't feel fear. He was an experienced and expert guide and knew exactly what to do. His priority was the safety of his guests. He spoke calmly and directly to them, briefing them on what to do. They listened intently, their eyes wide. He told them to get behind him and stand perfectly still. When the lion continued to walk towards them, it breached the safety distance Quinn felt comfortable with. When he had been in this situation before, the lions had usually stopped after a short distance and returned to the pride. But this time the threshold had been breached, and Quinn and the rest of the group began shouting loudly to deter the lion. This had the desired effect. The male lion stopped walking and stood still. He watched them, his eyes fixed on the group, his tail twitching. He was an impressive sight, but one which filled the group with fear, as they didn't know what he was going to do next. As he stood there, Quinn used the opportunity to set off a bear banger, which is a very loud fire bang. As the loud crack rang out, silencing the birds on the savannah, the lion jumped and immediately began to walk off obliquely from the group. It looked like he would return to the pride, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. They never took their eyes off the lion, but it seemed that they were out of danger, and that this would be one of those stories they would laugh about later around the campfire. But this story was about to take a sinister turn. Suddenly, the lion turned and sprinted towards Quinn and his 6 guests. It took them all by surprise. Just when they thought the danger had gone, it was sprung on them once more. This was no mock charge, and Quinn didn't have any time to fire his rifle. He stood staring down the face of the lion as it ran straight at him. Almost 60% of a lion's weight is made up of muscle, more than any other mammal in the animal kingdom, with males weighing up to 225 kilograms, 496 pounds. They are power, rapid, and formidable. The lion covered the ground in seconds, its beige-brown body glistening in the morning sun, its huge mane bouncing on its shoulders as it charged forwards. Quinn didn't betray his guests and flee. He stood his ground, unable to fire a single shot. He stood in harm's way, taking the full brunt of the attack to protect his guests. At the last second, the lion leapt onto him, and he was thrown to the ground. He smacked his head on the dry soil and tried to fend off the enormous predator, but it pushed him down and immediately pressed its head forward. The sandy dust was kicked up amidst the commotion, and the lion bit down on Quinn's neck and shoulder. He was powerless to stop it. The full weight of the lion and the ferocity of its bite were overpowering, and Quinn could only grapple with it, trying to protect his face and neck. Blood poured from his open wounds, and the rest of the group could only shout at the lion to try and get it to stop. Seconds later, the lion jumped off Quinn and retreated to the rest of the pride. But in that brief yet powerful attack, the damage had been done. When the lion was far enough away, the others rushed to Quinn's side. They tried to perform emergency first aid, but the lion's long canines had severed Quinn's arteries, and he had bled out within seconds. He lay, limp and lifeless, on the ground, just yards from the animals he had spent so many years admiring and vowing to protect. Hurriedly, the group grabbed Quinn's handheld radio and radioed through to the camp. Rangers came to the rescue, and Quinn was carried away. The morning had so quickly turned into an unimaginable tragedy. The guests had been physically unharmed during the attack. They were lucky that the lion hadn't turned on them as well. It was a devastating loss of life. David Carson, the general manager of Camp Hwange, who was also a professional guide for more than 2 decades, praised Quinn's heroic actions. He said of Quinn, "He paid the ultimate price in pursuit of a job he loved in an area he knew so well." Quinn was an exceptional guide, and his passion and respect for the wildlife he worked amongst came across through his guiding. The last picture he posted on his Facebook page was of Cecil the lion, who was mercilessly hunted by Walter Palmer.